This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos Rabbi. So today we're going to continue. We've been learning on Tuesdays Ovadia, so we're going to continue, especially in light of the fact that this week's Haftorah is Ovadia, and it's very apropos that this week's Haftorah is Ovadia, because Ovadia speaks about the downfall of Edom, and of course this week we read about the confrontation between Yaakov and Esav, and we learned on Monday that there was also a confrontation in Shamayim between the Shoresh of Yaakov Avinu and the Malach of Esav, the Malach of Edom in Shamayim. And now we're learning about the retribution that Edom will receive at the end of days. And on Tuesday we learned that in the opinion of the Abarbanel, not like the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra learns that this speaks about some of the downfall of Edom in the times of Bayis Rishon, that Edom was responsible partially in destroying the first Beis HaMikdash. You say, what, Rabbi? I thought the Babylonians destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. Yes, they did. But at that point in history, the Edomim were nearby. They were in Har Seir. They were east of Eretz Yisrael. And they were silent. Not only were they silent, they delivered many of the captives of the Babylonians into Babylonian hands. And Ibn Ezra says this is discussing their atrocities during Bayis Rishon. And the Radak's Shita, as we're going to see, is that it's discussing the atrocities the Edomim perpetrated during Bayis Sheni, which was, of course, destroyed by the Romans, who were descendants of Edom. However, the Abarbanel learns that Ovadia primarily is discussing the utter destruction of Edom at the end of days. And we learned last week the amazing comment of the Ibn Ezra, of the Abarbanel, that at the end of days, Esav, Rome, the Christian world, will say enough is enough. We want our homeland back. And they'll come to Israel, to Jerusalem, and they'll try to reconquer Jerusalem. But they won't come to Israel first. Which country will they go to first? Egypt. First they're going to conquer Egypt, and from there to Israel. When the Arab world finds out that the Christians are coming to take over their homeland, they'll say, what? Bad enough the Jews are there, now those Noitzrim are coming. And the Arab world will come, wage war against the Christian world, America maybe, and they will destroy them. And how many survivors will there be? You know, everybody is into Survivor, yeah? No survivor. That's the answer. No survivor. It's going to be a very popular news story, but unfortunately there will be no survivors. Okay? But ultimately, those who destroy them will also go down. Now, that is the opinion of the Abarbanel. Let us look at Pasuk Beis. Says the Navi, Hine katoin nesaticha bagoyim. Behold, I have made you small among the nations. Bozoi atamaoid. You are very despicable. Says Rashi, even though, this is referring to Esav, even though Yitzchak called Esav B'nai Hagadol, and his mother called him B'nai Hagadol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I don't care what your parents call you, you're Katan. Why? In what way was Esav Katan? So, in this holy library over here, do they have the Masechta Avodah Zarah? In the Masechta Avodah Zarah, which right now is not on the shelf, it is on the shelf. The Gemara says like this. The Gemara says, what does the pasuk mean that Rome, that Esav is Bazoy Atama'oid, is Katan Bagoyim? Says Rashi, Darshu Katan Shaloy Hayolahem like Sav V'loy Lashain. Rome never had a script. Rome never had a language. In fact, this is a Gemara in Masechta Avodah Zarah and Daf Yud. And the Gemara is explaining, what does it mean? Hine Katan Nesaticha Bagoyim She'ein Moishivin Melech Ben Melech. That Rome is the smallest of all nations. How's that? Rome is a democracy. How you would think a democracy is very powerful. No, democracy is the weakest. Now, Abarbanel says this refers to the Roman Senate. That until Rome, there were dictators. Comes Rome, and they have the Senate vote on who the next leader should be. that means the person is not really invested with full power. Because whenever you're elected by the people, there are always people who didn't vote for you. And that means you don't have inherent power. You didn't yarshin it. It's not in your blood. You just became a leader. So the weakness of Rome is that they're elected. And you could say the same thing about all of the countries that stam from Rome, that come from Rome, all the democratic countries, that on the one hand, you look at them and they seem like world powers, but ultimately their power is very weak. Anyone who's appointed by the people has limited power. But then the Gemara continues. What does it mean? Bazoy atama'oid. You are very disgraced. The Gemara says something very interesting. Says the Gemara, you know what it means they're very disgraced? She'en lohem loiksav v'loy lashain. They have no handwriting, they have no language. Now what does that mean? Rome doesn't have a handwriting, doesn't have a language? The ancient language of Rome was Latin. So they do have a language. Says Rashi, what does it mean they don't have a language? Says Rashi, Shenilkat l'shoina milashain umais. They stole their language from other people. They never had their own designated language. Says Rashi, they never had a language. They stole their language from others. By the way, the Abarbanel identifies that they stole their language from the Greeks. But Tosfos dismisses that. Tosfos says, what do you mean? How about the Arabs? Yishmael and the Bnei Keturah and Ammon and Moav. Were they before the Dar HaFlaga or well after the Dar HaFlaga? They're well after the Dar HaFlaga. And yet they have a language. So where did they get their language from? They stole it from other nations. So you can't say that Rome is despicable because they don't have a language. The Arabs don't have a language either. The Arab language is also stolen. Tosfos says they never had a regal, royal language because the ancient kings all had a special type of royal form of expression which Rome never had. Okay. Says the Navi, Zedain libecha hishiecha. The wickedness of your heart is what persuaded you. You know why you are going to be utterly ashamed? It's because the wickedness of your heart seduced you against the Jewish people and against God. Shoichni v'chagvei sela. Those who dwell in the clefts of the rock, Meroim Shiftai, with their abode on high. Oimer belibai, they say in their heart, Mi yorideni aretz, who could bring me down to the ground? Now what does this mean? It says the next pasuk, Im tagbia kanesha, if you raise yourself like an eagle, then bein koichavim simkinecha, and if you put your nest among the stars, misham oiridcha, from there I will take you down to Hashem. So we alluded to this last time, that this actually refers to the tall buildings of the Roman Empire. The Radak says explicitly, pasuk Dalid. Please look at the Radak. The Radak says, Meroim Shiftai.
Say this pasuk by 9/11, the neshers, the planes, and the buildings.
Meroim Yeshivasai Hay B'Chag Beisela. V'hu Har Seir. U'v'Yirmiyah Meroim Giva Shoichni. V'chein Chatzli Meroim Kivrei Hayosh V'Shamayim. So this is a reference to their elevated buildings. You thought no one could bring you down. The Malbim learns the reason why God gave them such grandeur. Take a look at the Malbim. In Tagbia Kanesher Simkinecha Shama, Hashem wanted Rome to have such an aliyah because the bigger they come, the harder they fall. Ki anoifim makam namach ena masukan kolkach. L'chein hatzave shatasim kinecha ben koichavim k'dei shetagdil ma'palascha. So God designated them to have such success. And now the Navi is going to describe.
Rome, are you talking about the Christian?
According to the Abarbanel, Rome is a reference to the Christian world. Yes.
Not specifically that the Pope is in Rome.
No. According to Abarbanel, I think he explicitly says that refers to the Western world as well. If I could.
Okay. Which side does he take? The Abarbanel, the Christian side, the Rome side, or the Greek Orthodox?
Which one of the two?
Yeah.
We have to look back at Sefer Daniel, where that is also prophesied. The Abrabanel says in another place, I don't know if you have Sid Kuf Yod Gimel, but he says, Avali Nira. Well, you don't have that one, right? So the Abrabanel says on page Kuf Yod Gimel, Avali Nira, Lefarish Aksum Ha'ila, that V'asher banu roimi rabasi v'agayim sarasi b'amadinas v'nesmala Italia v'chol eretz yavan mibnei Adam v'gam kol artzois hamarav v'mibnei zeh kinu anavim ha'uma kula b'shem Edom. So Abrabanel says the Western world is also Edom. That says explicitly, as I've seen so far, that the whole Western world is considered Edom. Okay. So now the Navi is explaining how astonishing it will be when Esav will be destroyed. Because usually, when there's destruction, there's some remnant. There's something left. There are some people. There are some survivors. There's something left. The pasuk says like this: "Ich nechbesu Esav." How is Esav searched out? Like the pasuk, "Im ganovim bo'ulecha." If robbers were to come upon you. Im shoydedei laila, plunderers of the night. Eichnid mesa, how would you be cut off? Hala yignevu dayom, they would just steal what they needed. Imagine if somebody came into someone's house to rob. So what would they rob? They would get as much as they can before the owners of the home wake up. They're not going to mamish rip off the wallpaper, right? If ganovim come into the house, they're not going to come take out the light bulbs and remove the covers of the switches and the sockets. And take out the mold. They'll get what they can. They'll take the cash, they'll take the money, they'll take the value, and run out. You're not going to have Ganovim start, chipping away the paint and collecting it in a bag. They get what they can. It's not worth their time. In Boitzrim Bolach, if vintagers would have come, they would leave gleanings. When people come to take, they don't take everything. It's not even worth it. But Eich Nechbesu Esav. How has Esav been searched out? Nivu. Matspunav. Their hidden treasures were completely ransacked. In other words, the Navi is describing the astonishing destruction that Edom is going to suffer. Complete and utter devastation. And then the Navi talks about how all the associates and all the allies of Edom seduced them and made them think that Edom had friends in the world, and allies in the world, and supporters in the world. And these supporters were really tricking Edom. They were saying, yeah, come, we're going to come to war with you. We're on your side. Come, let's go out to war. And as soon as Edom goes out to war, the other nations, they back out. They all are looking and hoping for Edom's destruction. Ad hagvol shalchucha. Those who promise to help you, they come with you and they escort you until the boundary. They come with you to war, and they persuade you, and then they forsake you. Kal anshe vrisecha, all the men of your covenant. Hishiyucha, they seduce you. Yachlu lecha, they prevail against you. Anshe shleimecha, the men of your peace, the men of your confederate. Lachmecha, those who eat your bread. Yasimu mazar tachtecha. In their place, they leave wounds. Ein tivuna bay. there is no understanding. In other words, all of your associates, all of your cohorts, all of your allies that you put faith in, they're not really your allies. Those who share in your bread, they bring misfortune on you. If you look in the Ibn Ezra says, Anshe Shleimecha, those who would feed you would put wound in your bread, and you would not even notice it. So if this is a reference to the United States of America, that means the Navi is saying that all these so-called allies are really enemies, and they can't wait till Rome goes out to war and they get destroyed in war. Haloi bayom hahunum Hashem. On that day, says God, V'ha'avadati chachamim Edom, I will destroy all the wise men of Edom. Usavuna, and understanding mehar Esav, from the mountain of Esav. Which means like this, which means as follows. In order for a country to be successful at war, you need two ingredients. Erstens, what do you need? You need strategy. Number two, you need power. You need strength. But on that day, there'll be nobody left in Edom who has enough military proficiency and planning and cunning and wisdom to be able to lead a war. All of the generals and all of the men of wisdom will be gone. God says, I will utterly destroy all the chachamim from Edom. Says the Navi, V'chatu givayrecha teman. Your warriors from the south land will be destroyed. Says the Targum, V'tabron gibarach yasvei daroima. Your mighty men who lived in the south will be destroyed. Laman yikares ish mehar Esav. So that man will be cut off from the mountain of Esav. Mikatel. From murder. What does that mean, from murder? Do you know why this will be? Says the Navi. You know why the Rebbeinu Shalom will cut off your people? Because of the great slaughter. The Targum says, because of the great massacre that will happen, they'll all be wiped out. Ibn Ezra says, Azai, listen to this. V'chatu l'man yikares ish me'roiv ha'hereg. It will be such utter devastation. V'lo yeh yishar palet. There will be no refugee. There will be nobody who survives. The Radak explains on Pasuk Tes that anybody who has any connection to Esav, any background, affiliation with Esav, there will be such a widespread destruction. Anyone who is even remotely related will be wiped out. Why? Why is Edom destined to suffer so horribly, so terribly? The answer is Mechamas Achicha Yaakov, because of the treachery that they committed against their brother Yaakov. Techas Chavusha, they will be covered in shame. V'nechrata la'olam, they will be cut off forever. Rashi actually learns on the pasuk that we said earlier, your bread will be replaced with wounds. That means your own food Yaakov made for you as a wound. Because when Yaakov gave Esav the bread and the pot of beans, because of that, Esav ended up disparaging the Bechorah. B'yoyim amodcha mineged. So now this begins a new part of the Nevuah, and this new part is as follows. We mentioned that there were two occasions early on in Edom's history that they committed atrocities against the Jewish people. The second one was the Romans actually destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash. But the first one was the Babylonians destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. But even though the Babylonians destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash, nevertheless, the Edomim who lived nearby in Har Seir, they stood by idly and they didn't help us. Not only did they not help us, they delivered many of our captives into the hands of the Babylonians. So let us take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, you didn't come to help us. And because of that, you are considered one of them. The Mari Kara says that this is a reference to the time in history when the Babylonians destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash and the Edomim stood by idly. So we don't have time to continue on, but I just want to bring to your attention in Pasuk Tazayin, where the ultimate fate of Edom is V'hayu k'lai hayu. They will be as if they never were. Now what does that mean, they will be as if they never were? That's pretty utter devastation. They won't even have land left, as if they never were. Well, we mentioned in the first year that, in the second year on Sefer Ovadia, that after Yitzchak Avinu gave the bracha to Yaakov, he gave Yaakov everything. He gave him the whole world. And Esav came in crying. He said, Tata, you have anything left? He said, nothing left. I gave away everything. So he said, okay, fine. I'll give you Mishmani Haaretz u'mital hashamayim. And Rashi says, what's Mishmani Haaretz? Ze Italia shel Yavan. He gave him Italy. What do you mean he gave him Italy? I thought he gave Yaakov everything. How did all of a sudden he gave him Italy? At least part of the world. He didn't give him Japan. He gave everything to Yaakov. Why Italy? So we said over from the Rebbe of Heschel that the way he was able to give him Italy is because Italy did not exist. Because the Gemara says on Shabbos, when Shlomo HaMelech married Bas Paroi, that point in time, Gavriel stuck a pole in the ocean, and it started building up seaweed, and it started building up landmass, and that eventually developed into Italy. So what Yitzchak gave Esav was, okay, I gave Yaakov everything, but I didn't give him Davar Shalai Bal Olam. I didn't give him things that did not exist yet. That I gave to Esav. So what did Yitzchak give to Esav? He gave him Yesh Me'ayin. He gave him something that didn't exist. What's Pshat? Pshat in that is because Esav doesn't really have a kiyam. He doesn't really even exist. What is Esav? Yaakov Avinu asked the Malach of Esav, what's your name? He says, why are you asking my name? Is that Peli? I don't have a name. I don't have a name. What does that mean he doesn't have a name? You want to know, what's the Yetzer Hara? Nothing. It's nothing. All those things that you want, and you desire, and you crave, but they're nothing. Nothing. What do you want? The burger? That's what you want? Let's analyze this burger for a second. You bite it, so you have it for 1 second. Then what happens to it? First the enzymes break it down. Then the stomach breaks it down. Then your intestines break it down. And then it goes into a little place in the Beis HaKisei. So think for a second. That's what you wanted? Mm-hmm. That's what you wanted? Oh, oops, I didn't realize that's what it was. All those things you desire, it's nothing! It's a fantasy! It's a dream, it's a cholam, it's an imposter. It's nothing. The Gemara says, Hu Amar Vayehi, Zet Taivas Noshem. What do you desire? This person? Let's fast forward 70 years under the ground. So you take a picture under the ground. This thing that you wanted. You have 100 worms, maggots, lice. You won't even be able, if you took it out, you wouldn't be able to look at it. That's what you wanted. It's all nothing. Esav is zero. It doesn't have a name even. And what Esav owns is also nothing. What did Yitzchak give Esav? Nothing. He gave him Italy. Italy doesn't exist. It was nothing. Later on, a pole came in, and then it got bigger and bigger. How did it get bigger? We create it. We make it. All the taivas. We invent. We make it up. And they're really nothing. We're the ones who invented. And ultimately, Esav and the Sari Shal Esav and the country of Esav, they'll revert to V'hayu K'lai Hayu. They'll be as if they never existed. It's all a fantasy. It's all a cholam. It's all a dream. It's all an imposter. It's all a pretender. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.